Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the listeners around the world here. Welcome back to Comerit's What's Up Enterprise, where we explore the latest technology trends across all industries with leading experts from around the globe. And today, super fortunate to have Robert Godfrey back and Matt Florian. And we're going to have a little discussion around benefits of Snowflake in SAP Enterprise Environments. And I think this is going to be a really fun topic. So we'll just go ahead and jump right into it.
Sounds
So,
great. Glad to be back.
yeah, glad to have you guys back. It's actually been way too long, but I know we had quite a few interviews in between, and there's even more stacking up. But so, either one of you, if you could just kind of go into what brought us to this topic. I mean, why are we talking about Snowflake and SAP? What does that mean for enterprise environments?
I'll take a shot at it first and then hand it over to you, Robert.
Okay.
So, why Snowflake and SAP? It comes down to, David, it's about complementary resources, complementary actions. So, SAP, man, run the business with SAP. And there's so much just value that sits inside of SAP on executing processes and that central brain, really, on the processes and operational excellence coming out of SAP for any organization. It's that left side of the brain, the creative piece of the analytics world to say, how can we do better? And sometimes the better way to go about that is looking at data, not just from what I was doing in my operations, but what came from the outside, other pieces of information. And when I look at how to best do that, that's where I find Snowflake really comes into play and helps do that easily. And where SAP is easy for operations, Snowflake is just easy for analytics.
Is there something within SAP environments that kind of tease it up or just makes it a really good fit? Like, what do you see are some of the key correlations? Is it because there's other types of data sources that you're trying to bring together? I mean, walk me
Yeah.
through, like, why would an organization even open up, slide their credit card and even look into Snowflake? What drives that?
But you said it, and Matt was alluding to it as well, is SAP is your core business operations line of sight, right? But when you get into analytics, especially in modern organizations, big organizations, you have these ancillary systems that are also used to run particular domains or parts of the business, right? And those have interesting data from, you name it, marketing, right? Third party, geospatial, just these other systems. And so it's really a matter of how do you take those views of data and combine it with your operational views that are corely managed in SAP and get that additional color, right? That's that differentiator that if you do your analytics right, you augment your abilities to cut costs, increase margin, right? The increase revenue, because you have that complete operational view that aligns with your operational processes, but you're adding all this additional color from these other systems and these other rich sources of data.
And David, I think you hit it though too. It's that swiping the credit card, right? Is the when we plan out in SAP world, in SAP environments, we're often trying to plan and anticipate infrastructure years into the future, which then limits us to what we can do. Right? You have to work within the limits of the infrastructure in which you designed and planned. Inside of Snowflake, because of its architecture, because of the way it's built, that you don't have to do that advanced planning. So you're much more free to do the work you have to do. A good organization will go and give guardrails to that freedom with good FinOps practices to make sure you don't blow away your cloud budget. But it does allow significantly more freedom to explore your data and find opportunities in the market that doesn't just exist inside of SAP. SAP tells you about you. The other data can tell you about how you were going to compete against the market.
So I've heard lots of organizations and enterprise talk about this. I mean, that's the holy grail. If I can get it all together and I add color to what I already have in terms of my foundational. But how do you do that? I mean, are there connectors? It seems complicated. Whenever we talk to anyone, people are Sure, this sounds fantastic, but how do you get this data integrated? I want the color. What's available to me that gives me that capability?
Well, in my experience, well, that color comes from the sound architecture, sound data architecture. And by that, you get the most color out of it when you start modeling and collecting data as domains of data. And by that, I mean your domain of your revenue. What's all the data that is around this domain concept of revenue? What's the data that's around the domain concept of supply chain? And when you think about domains and don't think about that, oh, this is SAP, this is Salesforce, this is HubSpot. But you think about this is customer. And here's where all the different feeds the customer comes in. This is sales. Here's where all the sales comes in. And you talk in domains, then you're able to integrate data because you're integrating it about a domain and not about a system. And that's one of the keys to success in doing any set of analytics, is looking at that perspective.
So you guys know I know Robert, you are too, heavy SAP background, right? So my world looks like SAP. Are we talking about when I can do these types of domain integrations, is this real time or, you know, what am I looking at in terms of data when I'm doing this integration? Give me a feel for what it looks like if I were to move and try to bring these other domains together inside of Snowflake.
Well, it goes back to what Matt was saying, right? You're doing your architecture right, and by bringing in these domains, well, those domains all have business entity, business context, right? So when you're talking consumer or plant or finance transaction from the GL or an order, you bring those in and you have that SAP data. I think another important aspect is when you are modeling in Snowflake, you can combine history from these systems that usually when we come in, like it's SAP implementation, you're going to a whole nother level. Well, you have all those legacy systems that has rich data, you want to bring that along. You can do that with Snowflake. And going to what Matt was saying is have a data product that has that complete view from the legacy system, plus your new SAP implementation and all the color around it. Like that's the value of doing data product thoughts and implementing those in Snowflake.
And that frequency, David, really, again, driven by the business. If there's business drivers that says, hey, can I stream data from SAP into Snowflake? The answer to that is yes, you could. You absolutely could. It's what you do and how you do it and why you do it will be entirely driven by the business, because everything has a cost, everything has a benefit. So you look at what it is, your goals of the business. Why are you trying to get something out of it? And, and that streaming information, it's looking at those events.
And there you go. It's like, you hear the fancy words like Lambda architectures and Kappa architectures where you're mixing batch and streaming. All it's about the ease of that implementation in the business context. And Snowflake makes that easy.
So in this world, I know there's a lot of talk about this right now, like especially with SAP customers, they're very heavy reliance upon their BW business warehouse systems. When I'm looking at potentially leveraging Snowflake, can I expect that there might be some improvements in the way I do data warehousing today? I mean, what's another driver that would say, you should consider this? And this will probably land somewhere. You'll get my point here. Just pretending I'm a business person, I want to know all my ROI components and, how does my life get easier because of this path? So we can start there. Let's talk about improvements that I gain.
One of those improvements that we advocate with our clients is that the Snowflake architecture, the Snowflake environment lets you implement an additional data architecture component such as data mesh, because we're talking about domains of data, and the business area owns those domains, right? If you go back to your strict data governance world, they own the process, they own the data. And in doing so, in a data mesh side of the world, they also are able to augment and add additional color into their data to go and say, I have this. We want to go and explore these connections with our data and our third-party data. And Snowflake really allows that to happen in that mesh architecture so that they can do that exploration and they can advance the business more agilely within confines of governance to say, here's something that has an impact to us, and do that exploration because the business knows. And in this case, the business knows more about what that impact of the analytics is to the outcomes of the business than IT ever will. So it creates the opportunity for a strong IT business partnership, because in the end, IT is just the business. It's an enabler of the business, but it's business. And this gives you that partnership so that you are agile and really promoting a strong data culture across the organization.
I couldn't help but think while you were talking about this, and we've mentioned color multiple times, and we're all sitting here with black shirts on. And I thought, was that on purpose? So we would think in color. It was just something that caught my attention.
It's our modern Friday, you know.
It's that
So-
angsty Gen X in us.
So, that's a good start. What about my query times? Do I get any advantages in terms of query?
Oh, in the Snowflake environment, you absolutely do get advantages in terms of query, and that's just the inherent Snowflake architecture of how it caches and query caching in there. So you get that. The other benefit inside of Snowflake that has a advantage over top of the SAP, if I was in BW, is that in the event that I am starting to stress out my query and my compute, I can scale up, I can cluster. The tools and the levers at my disposal to quickly change and improve and even dynamically improve inside of Snowflake is significantly better than the BW. Now, BW has advantages because it puts a lot of things into memory, which can really give you strong optimization. But that's also that in memory gives you your limitations because you have to work within the constraints of what you provisioned. Snowflake, I can quickly spin up compute without any interruption. In 1 minute, I could go from a medium-sized warehouse with 4 clusters to an extra large warehouse with 16 and improve my performance.
And dynamically be able to spin that right back down, right?
Correct.
If you have a job that's for proof of concept, some very large job, spin it up, spin it down, and it's very easy.
Which is one of those things that hits the credit card, right? Is that you go, oh my God, I'm spinning up all this compute. Well, here's a funny thing about Snowflake math when it comes to credit usage, that if a job took me 2 hours to run on a small warehouse in Snowflake, and then I scaled it up to extra large and it took me 5 minutes to run, that 5-minute job cost me as much as that 2-hour job. So I can get more done for the same price in 5 minutes than I did in 2 hours. It's a very effective cost model.
So, Robert, from a business perspective, it might be a big ask from me to, maybe I'm having to change the way I do things a little bit. So, what would you tell me as a business person? And we can just make up a particular business area, but pretend like I'm not the IT department, but I know that this is coming my way. Why should I be excited or not?
So from a business domain and analytics perspective, I've been there, is you can do so much in SAP. Let's say put on a finance hat. Great. You can see your financials data, your GL data. But I've been in these analytics initiatives where not only do you need to see your financials and trust them, but again, I'll use the word color.
Perfect.
But you can tie it to operational and third-party data sources and get more details of context of what's happening out there. And if I was a finance executive, and we've done this, being able to provide that additional color really gets some advantages from a business initiative.
Yeah, I hear a lot of talk about enhanced analytics and reporting capabilities, right? So SAP has a phenomenal visualization tool and SAC. So can these two work together? Is there a benefit there?
Totally. Yeah. Because, it's usually a decision tree is you want to go closer to the core, closer to your ERP data and get it in real time. The core SAP visualization tools will shine there. If you want to do proof of concept or analytics that is more holistic to your business, meaning bringing in these ancillary systems, like we were listed, Salesforce, geospatial operational custom systems, legacy systems. Snowflake really enables that, gives you that ability. And then whatever front end tools of choice, Snowflake can be that back end, but you're coming from the same sources of data. SAP data is present in Snowflake and trusted just as much as in SAP. They can live together in harmony.
So how do I separate what's a sales pitch versus what's technically feasible and reality of what I'll receive?
So here's the fun things, right? SEC has, SAP put out a fairly new initiative that says, hey, SEC, you can take your SEC, connect it to Snowflake. And that would create a lot of buzz in the market. Say, oh my God, look at this. I can start doing this stuff over there. But with that connector, it also still means that you're bringing in and moving a lot of data back over into SAC for what you're doing. And you still have to do modeling over there in the work. So the reality is that while you can do it, it may cost you more because you still have to model and model again. Versus if you have this data, you're really relying on your SAC for those operational and just pure operational analytics that run purely off of SAP data. Man, SAC excels. It's a great tool for it. But when I'm going and doing exploratory and I want to combine data sets together, then SAC starts to fall behind a little bit just because of the legacy architecture decisions that it relies on. Whereas you have significantly more agility with more modern tools that are built off of the Snowflake stack. So agility and flexibility and being able to go and build up your data, Snowflake will excel in that space most every time.
Is that a true statement, Robert?
100%. Yeah, we've been there. Been living that.
Well, here's the thing, and I don't want to open Pandora's box on this call. I think might be reserved for another more detailed call. But when I think of enhanced analytics, I immediately my mind starts to think about things around predictive or advanced analytics, machine learning. How does integrating the paths with Snowflake and SAP get me closer to that? How does that help? Is there advantages of using Snowflake for advanced analytics and machine learning?
Yes, I mean, Snowflake's got a lot of great features, right? In the user-defined functions, Snowpark. The interesting thing about what we're talking about with Snowflake, and then thinking from an advanced analytics perspective, is you build it right. Like, say you could have a model of a data vault, a business vault. You're taking away some of that data acquisition, data cleansing issues that a lot of data science teams have, where the cliche is 80-90% is just getting the data to a good state. Well, you're getting all your core interesting data to the business in one place, and that's Snowflake. And then you're giving them easy and controlled access that takes away some of that friction in the beginning. And then you have Snowpark, these great features where the output of these algorithms could feed right back into the system, and the non-power user, business users, can leverage that.
So
that's a really good advantage.
Matt, do you want to add something to that?
So the other thing is that those analytics, I mean, really when you're running AI and those analytics, the Snowflake is there to help you train and learn what the AI analytics is going to be. And the actual execution gets much closer to the where the event occurs is what ends up happening. So the Snowflake side of it is number one to train. The analytics side is right next to where the event is occurring. So for instance, if you're going for digital commerce built on top of SAP, then your machine learning and AI is going to be at the front end of your web to tell and say, hey, promote this product. They have this in their basket, suggest this product. Or it's going to be going and watching streams coming in through your IO devices and saying, oh, look, these events occurred within this time frame. Take this action. React this way. And that's where the actual AI sits. But if then flows back into something like Snowflake, where then you can continue to train and retrain models as it comes in. And Snowflake is very rich in that space because, again, I can flow in analytics data, stream it from any source, add it to SAP and other pieces to go and say, when these events occur together, then trigger an action. So you can look at it from many perspectives across the data domain.
Awesome. I got to tell you, it's getting a little chilly in here with all the talk of Snowflake. So in this portion of it, we're really just trying to get the basics out to people like, hey, there's a real opportunity here for those of you that are in this decision process around, hey, is this a tool that we can use within our SAP enterprise? Are there any key areas that we missed or I didn't give you guys a chance to touch upon? Are we pretty good there?
I think so. It's the common theme that I kept on hearing, and I think we hit upon inside of this is that while there are a lot of functions inside of Snowflake that are there and exist as complements to SAP, the overall Snowflake comes into play because it can also help control your operational expenses. It does help significantly when I look at what does it take to stand up a BW to go and do work versus what it takes to stand up Snowflake. And that's an area that really can be driven into deeper because there's that operational cost and how much you're planning and how much capacity are you buying inside of a BW versus what you're doing inside of Snowflake has a big difference inside of here. And Snowflake being a cloud product means that we're taking a look at things and running it from a FinOps perspective, right? I'm optimizing for financial. I'm partnering with procurement so that there is just as much of a partner with me in the development of products, data products, as anybody else in the business. And I'm giving the developers the full view into what does it cost to build what you have and can you optimize it better. And these are a whole different dynamic to what we think about. But it does help control costs if you govern it correctly, if you implement it with these things in mind. And if you have somebody to help guide you through what is a good implementation of Snowflake, not just turn it on and run, because that's how you run up your credit card. It is about turning it on and executing it with a plan.
I think, Robert, you touched on this a little bit at the beginning too. This is getting into the overall cost model. And they do have the term that I heard originally was pay by the drink or pay as you go. So I don't know what terminology they use now, but I have heard others actually talk about that this is a benefit. So, I mean, how does that model work? It's like, that's different than what we're used to.
The term that you see thrown around now is it's like data ops, ML ops, well, FinOps.
FinOps, okay.
FinOps, right? And what that really means is, do you have a really good view of your analytics, operational, your data engineering systems in a way that not only are you optimizing for data flow, but you're understanding your architectural complexity and reducing the cost to be able to implement your advanced analytics engineering systems. Because I think that's what Matt was addressing, and that's what was going to be like my final thoughts on it is, as a new organization, you have SAP, you have all these additional data. Snowflake helps to facilitate like seeing how to build out that advanced analytics environment. But at the same time, it has capabilities that reduces your architectural complexity that you can see other organizations when they have a data science focused platform and then a data business intelligence platform. Like those capabilities are moving closer to being more managed, right? Easier to manage. And Snowflake's a part of that.
So in essence, leveraging this route also reduces the total overall cost of maintenance while you're going through trying to
If done
enhance
right.
your environment. What's
If
that?
done right. If done
Right.
right.
Done correctly, you can control your utilization of it, or you control your cost by the ability to turn on and off that need, right?
Mm-hmm. Scale on demand.
And really, Snowflake, you manage the FinOps, but its cost model is very, very much a utility cost model, right? You're charged for how long you turn the lights on. And if you have the lights on in a room you can pack in 30 people into that room, it doesn't cost you more because you pack 30 people into the room. It's the same cost for turning on that one light. Now, if you say, I want to pack in 100 people into this room at one time, and I'm going to turn on 10 lights to do it, then 10 lights can service 100, can service 1,000. Depends on how big your room is and what you're willing to do. And that's a very utility model, because once you turn off that light, then you stop charged for it. But you're not charged by the more people you add into that light. It's once it's on. Since it's turned off, you're off. Just like turn on a switch in your room.
You bring up a great point, though. It's important to have really good architects and experience around when you're going through this type of thing. Because I've actually heard stories where folks that did get their Snowflake environment up and it was very costly. But at the same time, you dig into that a little bit more and you realize that there didn't actually have a guided plan or strategy rolling it out. And so, if you get to the roots of that, you realize, well, maybe it didn't get set up correctly. And I think that's a strong point to make, Robert, to have really good experts when you're engaging in this path. Clients will ask me, so what is the major differentiator when Comerit gets involved? And one of the things I talk about is the fact that not only do we have the strength on the Snowflake architecture and we have incredible expertise, but we couple that with our background in SAP. A lot of projects I saw out there had Snowflake people and they had no idea what was going on. They didn't understand SAP. And so immediately they got themselves in some challenges because they didn't. And I think that's a unique background of both of you that you have. You both came out of SAP environments, or probably, Robert, you started on the SAP side, right?
I did.
So yeah, and I don't think people think about this enough. I believe we deserve a lot of credit there of having that base foundation of how data works within an SAP environment. So
yeah, because those businesses, they're SAP driven. That means your analytics are SAP centric.
right.
And knowing that as your foundation for what you build becomes very important.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, we're a little bit over. I mean, I have a laundry list of stuff more to talk about. So I'm looking forward to doing a part 2 on this thing because, we haven't even gotten into security, compliance. There's, looking at hybrid versions, multi-cloud. There's a lot of stuff that we still have to cover. And I'd like to get in part 2 of this, maybe some use cases. So hopefully we'll get an opportunity in our next one to really talk through some detailed use cases. In closing, do you guys have anything else? You feel like I may have missed something? I in the time that we had, I think we did pretty well.
I think we covered a lot of territory.
Yes.
There's
plenty more, as you were saying.
Yeah, there really is. And I like to keep these things a little short so that people will, it's easy for them to listen to on the way to work, but also enough to get them to ask questions and to reach out. But thank you guys very much for taking time out of your day to go through this stuff. I really appreciate it. I know you guys are working super hard in the field and making this stuff a reality for organizations out there. And it's a ton of fun. The world's changing fast and we need experts like yourselves to do this. I mean, that's the reality. You can't get there without the knowledge and the wisdom you guys have gained over, gosh, I don't know, many, many years now, I'm sure. So, but thank you
Totally
guys
agree,
very much.
guys.
We won't count.
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
good
we'll
catch.
see
Thanks,
you.
Dave.
Yep.